And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Elaine Thorpe, British trance medium with over a decade of experience, who communicates with spirits, including her spirit guide, Jonathan Hunter. Elaine, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me on again. It's lovely. I watched some of your videos on your channel. Very interesting.
Well, it's great to have you back. And for all the people that are meeting you for the first time today, can you share with us how you became a trance medium in the first place?
Well, I know that my father was a physical medium, and sometimes, that was when I was a young girl. And on occasion, I used to sit in his group, and it's very interesting. And he went on for over 30 years with that, but I only sat with him occasionally. So that was when I was first introduced into any form of sitting with a medium. But I didn't really start connecting with mediumship until I was around 35, when I'd get the odd message or two or the odd sensation. But when I used to have my daughter as a little girl, we used to photograph orbs. I'd photograph a lot of orbs. So we'd get a lot of them on camera. So I was always very interested in the mediumship and stuff. But I didn't really know that I had any abilities, but I was always interested in recording spirit and orbs and that sort of thing. But when the time came for me to know about the trance mediumship was when I went away to Ireland, and my father-in-law had passed in, I think it was 1995, he passed over there, and we decided to go over there a few years later and see his family, and I missed him, because I always thought of him as, well, sort of like a second dad, really. I loved him to pieces. And when we went over there, it was our last night. So we got into the hotel room, as you do, get ready for bed. And we had to travel back the next day. So we put the kids to bed then. They were young then. And our two double beds were in the same room. So I thought, well, I laid there quietly, and they were all drifting off to sleep. And I thought, well, if you're here, can you let us know? Can you just give me a sign that you're around? Because I do miss you. And I'd just like to hear from you before we go home, And he'd already sent signs in back home in our house years earlier, but I just wanted to hear from him again. So anyway, nothing happened, and I realised, okay, I'll just lay on my stomach and go to sleep, just relax. And I was sort of drifting, if you know what I mean. I was relaxed, but still aware and still awake. And all of a sudden, I felt my stomach pull in. It was a weird sensation. And you didn't have time to think about it because it just happened out of the blue. So this voice kind of came out, but it didn't sound like his voice. It sounded like a quiet whisper to me, but it woke the children up, and they were startled by it. They said it was really loud, but to me it sounded really quiet because I could hear it and I was aware of it. And I thought, oh dear, what happened there? I wasn't really asleep, so how could it be talking in my sleep? Because I wasn't asleep. I was just relaxed gently. And I know he was trying to speak to his son that was laying next to me. And so then it just stopped. It was very, very brief. And of course, their father thought I was just shouting in my sleep. So the next day I got up and thought about it. And I thought, well, that's very strange. I've never experienced anything like that. So I don't know how I remembered one of my mother's friends. I called her, and unbeknown to me, she held a trance group years ago. And I spoke to her and I said, what was that all about? I told her what happened. And she said, that's trance mediumship. I said, trance mediumship? And I didn't know what it was because my father had never explained all of that to me. He wasn't one to talk about it. He just went and did it, And she said, well, didn't your father tell you about it? I said, no, he doesn't talk to me about anything. You know what dads are like. So anyway, she said, well, I know a lady, if you wanted to develop it, her name's Kay Austin. So I said, okay, yeah, where's the group? She said, well, it's not too far from where you are, just up the road, actually. I thought, well, that's nice, that's convenient, I can get there. So I went there for the first week, and she wasn't there, and I thought, oh, she's not here. And a lady just sort of took on the circle, and it was like a meditation group. And I'd never meditated in my life, you know, so I thought, sort this about, you know, I'll just do as she asks and relax. And I thought, oh, I really don't like this. I can't follow her guided meditation. I think what I'll do is I'll come back next week when the other lady returns. So she came back the following week, and I was eager to get there. And it started on the trance there, the development group. And I loved it, but it wasn't until a few months afterwards, and it wasn't in the group either, that Jonathan showed up. He came through in my neighbour's house because she asked me to do some trance. And I said, well, I'm not really sure. I've only been doing it a few months. She said, oh, go on. My friends have all gone home now. I have no idea who spoke or who came through when I went into that trance. All I know is at the end, Jonathan appeared. And he appeared, and I felt, oh my goodness, I never felt so much love in my life. It felt like someone had switched 1,000 lights on inside of me. It was like so much love, so much joy that I'd never experienced in my life. And I thought, what is this? And, you know, like, where have you been all my life? And I know you, but I don't know you, but I feel as if I do. And I feel as if I love you, you know. So I left it at that, and that was amazing. And I went to the group, and then he started coming through in the group. And at first his voice wasn't very, it was a bit sort of like, it didn't have any expression in, but you knew it was him. It was like he was learning how to come through now. It was like he was learning how to use my voice, and he had to learn how to use it over time with expression and, you know, like we do. But it was a bit robotic because we recorded it in 2006, I think it was. Yeah, still got the tapes from right back then. And I showed the people on Facebook, you know, a few years ago about that. And there were the tapes with his voices on, and I sort of look back in comparison and think, wow, you know, that was the beginning. And he would come through each time and learn how to speak through me, and I had to learn how to trust. And of course you question and stuff like that, don't you? You think to yourself, well, oh dear, who's this? What's going on? You know, is it real? Is it me? That sort of thing. Yeah. So that's how it happened.
What can you tell us about who Jonathan is and was?
Well, it's quite interesting actually, because he lived in the 1800s. You know, he was born in 1845 and passed in 1891. And I will just sort of put a little bit extra in there, actually, because I noticed I was sitting in the coffee shop, and over the road, there was my favourite art shop over there. And I'm a painter, you know, I do art. And next door to it was a little old family cake shop. You know, they've been going for years. And the two shop fronts had been painted in exactly the same colour, in like a navy blue. That's weird. Those shops are painted the same colour. Perhaps the same company did it for them, you know. They decided to. And then I all of a sudden took note of the dates that were on the shops, because some of these shops say established, don't they, on them? So they say the year of their establishment. Well, on the cake shop, it had established 1967, which was the year of my birth. And the shop directly next door, painted in the same colour, but an art shop, was established in the year of his passing in 1891. And they're right next door to each other. And I thought, wow, I've never noticed that all this time, and now I've suddenly noticed it. It's like he wanted me to notice it, like he was sending me a sign. Yeah, it was crazy. So he lived in, it was Islington in London he came from. And he had a father that owned built up some sort of business with horse and carriages. So I assume that he would have rented or loaned the carriages out to the gentry, he said. And his father built up the business, and as he grew up, he became part of that business along with him. So this sort of father and son ran it together, you know. And I was even going to try and find out what the business was named or something. I wanted that. And to see if, you know, what it was. Because it usually has and son on there, didn't it, years ago? You know, someone and son, if they ran a business together. And he said they did help out the funeral people with their carriages and everything, that sort of thing. And, you know, I used to sort of hate the thought of being in Victorian times, yet now I love it when I look back at it. And he said to our group, he said, I was married in St Mary's Church in Islington. I thought, oh, yeah, right, there's St Mary's churches everywhere. It's got to be. And he said, well, he stated that the church was bombed in the Second World War and that the end tower had remained and the rest of it had been crumbled. You know, it was a mess. And he said several people came together and rebuilt it and designed it slightly differently and added it onto the main tower. Well, I looked it up, and the internet wasn't so broad as it is now back then. This probably would have been about 2006, 2007. And I looked it up and I found the photographs of this, and he stated it was the Second World War. And it was exactly right. The tower had remained, the Second World War bombed, and an arsenal group came and rebuilt it. So I thought, wow, that's incredible. It's all correct. And I, you know, you still doubt and still question things, but I couldn't believe what I'd saw because I knew nothing of it, and I just managed to find it. And I thought, wow. So years later, two friends of mine took me to the church that he was married in, you know. And I went into the church and they said, oh, will you go into trance? I said, I can't do that in here. It's a Christian church, you know, like that. Well, there was no one around, so he quietly came through and thanked them and said, look, I have to respect the church's wishes, so I must step back with a thank you. And we all left there crying our eyes out. We were like overwhelmed that I'd been in that church, and, you know,
That's
it
amazing.
was amazing to find that was all real.
Have you discovered any other evidential things about him that you were able to confirm?
He said that he was born in Rose Cottages in Islington. So anyway, one day I decided to look up old roads just to find out where this Rose Cottages was, because I couldn't find it on a map. And, you know, I didn't know much about the internet then. I still don't now. But, you know, I looked up and I found Rose Cottages in Islington. It said Rose Cottages, Islington. And I don't know if that may have been a road or a name, because in those days, a lot of the babies were born at home, weren't they? You know, not all of them got to hospital and they had their babies or wanted their babies at home, and the midwife would come in and wash the bedding, you know, set it all up. And of course, Rose Cottages in Islington existed. And I thought, my goodness, there's another bit of evidence. But I haven't got a certificate, because back then you didn't have so much information, and I had to phone up the offices and find out, and they couldn't seem to help me very much. And anyway, so I asked the church about the marriages, and he said, well, unfortunately, he said, a lot of the things were destroyed, and a lot of it had the fact that the church had been bombed. Some of them moved to other churches, and some of the paperwork or things that were destroyed. And I thought, oh, you know, so I just sort of left it at that. And I thought, well, I've just got to trust in myself and trust in him, you know, and that's how it was. But that was the evidence that I found. And all what he'd said so far at that time was all true.
You have a portrait of him. Did you paint that?
I wish I did. My friend Francis, one night we were sitting in our group and he knew Frances was a trained artist, and he turned and said to her, "Well, Lady Frances, would you paint my portrait for me? Because I would like Elaine to see who I am and what I look like." And she said, "Yes, certainly, Jonathan, I'll do that for you." Well, I said to her she should have been a psychic artist because she painted it. And I thought, oh my goodness. I said, how long did it take to do that? Oh, she said about half an hour. Half an hour. I said, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Drawing portraits. And it was an amazing portrait. I knew it was him, you know. And even my daughter was only about 6 or 7. She knew it was him too. She said, that's what I always knew him to look like. Yeah. So anyway, that I've got the portrait here, and it was quite amazing because one time we were sitting in the circle, pitch black, because we were sort of looking towards any physical phenomena back then. And I just, in the end, I thought, oh, that just isn't for me. But she just scribbled on a piece of paper in the dark, no phones in the room, no nothing like that. And when we turned the lights on, she'd drawn an Indian chief, and she couldn't possibly see anything in this dark room. She had no light assisting because we kept the lights sort of dimmed and off. Couldn't possibly see, it was that dark. And she drew a full headdress Indian, and there wasn't one mistake in it. So after that, I knew that she'd drawn Jonathan. I knew it was him, and I thought, wow. I always said to her she should have been a psychic artist, but she got ill, unfortunately, and she never did take it up. Such a shame.
All right. Well, would you like to bring Jonathan forward?
Oh, yes, certainly.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
I'm pleased to make my acquaintance with you.
Hello, Jonathan. It's good to be with you again.
Thank you.
I don't know if you know this, but you are becoming famous in our realm.
How wonderful. Although I do not look for anything of that nature, but it is nice to be able to reach the people, to let them know that we are in existence. Yes.
Jonathan, how much of our future in our realm is pre-planned?
All of it. Every single detail, every single happening. There are no coincidences. It's all synchronistic.
Does that mean that we don't have free will?
Oh, yes. The soul has free will. It is the soul that plans the journey. The body is just the requirement for the soul to make its journey in. So it is not the body and the physical brain, that is the ego mind, that is the ego emotion. But the soul is the one that lives the journey because it is the soul that is trying to create its own evolution so that it can eventually cease to reincarnate into this world.
If we get that ability, what would we do then? Go to other realms or just stay in the astral world indefinitely?
I would believe that you would all stay at home. Yes. Because there would be no longer any need to incarnate to the earth.
Is that possible to achieve?
Oh, yes. Anything is possible.
Are you at that frequency?
I should say so, yes.
Last time I asked you this question, and things appear to be moving rapidly in our realm. And can you give us any indication of what's going to be happening in the near future?
Well, I did mention your president coming in a while ago because we already knew that he was going to come there. And I do believe everyone has a difference of opinion of anyone that comes into power. But the power is within, really, isn't it? With everyone.
Yes.
No one has power over another, really. It is just an ego world that you are living in. But in the future, I believe that the consciousness connection will become much more prevalent in your world. And I believe that, Yeshua knows about that. And he is with us all, agreeing with us all, because you are all a part of the oneness and consciousness connection. But of course, you are separate in your ego and separate in your journey, so to speak. Yet you unite with other souls that have also preconceived the journey alongside you, not only to bring you into this world, but to live alongside you and watch your journey and love you and watch over you, so to speak, in life. So you are all connected as one, yet you go about your lives in a separate sort of space, don't you? You may pass several people in the street, look at them in general, never ever see them again. But in your world, I do believe that people will really start to come together more and help each other. And I'm not saying the world is going to become perfect overnight, but there will be an understanding of the fact that you are more than what you think you are. And I believe that, parts of religion are beautiful, yes, but there are parts that will diminish because of this awakening. Because you realize that you have the church within your mind and your heart and your soul. Your soul is your church. So therefore, it will become more of a free-thinking world, so to speak.
This awakening that you speak of, is it the same thing that what many people here call the ascension?
Yes, that's right.
And is that already happening?
It is. It is just the beginning. The best is yet to come.
Is there anything that we should do to prepare for it or help us?
Well, by going within and communing with your consciousness, because that is what you really are, and understanding it is something wonderful, you see. To go within and know who you truly are is how you can find yourself, how you can learn to love yourself, how you can learn to self-express. So the most common purported way of doing that is through meditation, quietening of the mind. Some people have out-of-body experiences and realize that they are free, really. Their consciousness can travel anywhere that it wants to be. But others are a little afraid of that connection. And so therefore they prefer to quietly meditate. And that is enough for them. But there are many ways that you can commune with yourself. Sometimes sitting amongst others in a meditation group will help you, or sitting by the ocean and being at one with yourself. Being alone is sometimes a good thing because you find inner peace that way.
Is it possible that we can connect with what we call our higher selves? And if so, how do we do that?
Through quietening of the mind. You somehow undress the ego, so to speak, and leave it to the back of you, behind you. And you forget about that for a minute, and you realize that your higher consciousness is the true you, and that the ego is only the earthly personality, so to speak. The earthly one that expresses the emotions in many ways, doubtful or positive, whatever way they wish to express it as. But the true self is the higher consciousness.
Would you say that the higher self is really our complete self and only a limited version of us is here?
That's right. You see, part of a facet of you remains in the spirit realm, and the rest of you is here.
When we return, does our current personality stay the same on the other side, or do we change because of all the other past lives that we've accumulated that are still in memory over there?
Well, you could take a look at your past lives at any time that you so wish. Your essence is still you. So I would say the essence is the personality is played out differently in different lifetimes, but it is still your essence. So it's all of you, part of you, your soul and the makeup of you. But when you present yourself to your loved ones here on the earth, you would present yourself as they would have known you. If you were to present yourself as a ball of light, they may question it and say, well, who is that? If you were to present yourself as they would have remembered you, by sending them a sign or by letting them see you in a dream as such, then they would know that it was yourself.
Since you mentioned ball of light, many people here see what we call orbs, which to me are essentially ball of lights. Is that what they're seeing, is spirits without bodies?
Yes. Because, most of the orbs, or all of the orbs, are spherical, aren't they?
Yes.
So when something is spherical. There is no end and no beginning. So it is a sign of we are from the eternal life. And we are showing you ourselves as having eternal life and being of light. So we have become light beings.
Is the theory of karma real?
You name it as karma, but the human being, the soul that goes into all of these human lives, is choosing to experience emotion in many different fabrics, so to speak, many different forms. And so therefore negative and positive emotion in the way of emotion and in the way of reality and pain or that they may experience, they experience all sides of it. So it's like trying on many items of clothing and seeing which one fits the best, isn't it? You see, you will try them all on and you will experience them all and know which suits you best, so to speak. So therefore, they will experience all of these different emotions in different lifetimes with different counterparts that are previously incarnated with them. And so therefore, if you are perhaps going to leave someone alone in life and ignore them, they want somebody to love them and you go away and ignore them, perhaps later on in life you will be alone and they will ignore you, so to speak. So therefore, it's not a karma as such. It's that you have chosen to experience both sides of it, to give it and to receive it.
Well,
so to speak. Does that help you understand?
Yes. Let me ask you this. Some people believe that we accumulate this debt of wrongdoings performed by us, and then we have to, in some way, pay for that debt. Is that true?
Well, if you were going to pay for the debt, you'd be paying forever and ever and ever, eternity, wouldn't you? Because no human being has perfection of behavior, and everybody has disagreements and different points of view and arguments, and everyone may fight with battles and what have you. So therefore, if you were to think that way, and if you were to think, well, that person's going to go to hell because they've done the slightest of wrong, and they're going to be thrown back to earth forever. No, it doesn't happen like that. The soul eventually progresses and eventually has the understanding of unconditional love in spirit form and in human form, but they will never be truly perfect because they are experiencing all of these different emotions of negative and positive, and that is human life. But the ones who are sort of choosing to experience the greater depravities of negativity in life are the ones that will probably keep coming back until they may become a better person. But when they come to the spirit realm, you see, if they have put people through terrible, terrible things, and there may be thousands of billions of people that they've harmed in some way or another, emotionally or physically, they would experience all of their emotions. And imagine how that must feel. They have chosen to understand, see what they had put them through. And that would be, it would be painful for them, but they would want to understand that that is how it felt. And they may come back in many, many lifetimes and experience something of that nature in each lifetime, or many times in the one lifetime, to understand what it felt like, because they wanted to experience what it felt like. So they experience both sides of the fence, so to speak. And they may do that many times before they become somewhat enlightened.
When people return to the other side, do they have what is called a life review? And if so, is that where they experience or re-experience all the things that they have done here?
Yes, that's right. It is played out like a movie, so to speak. But it is played so fast, yet can be observed. And so therefore they can see the good and the not so good in life. And they can understand how they would have learned from that and what the experience was like for the other person and yourself.
Does hell exist?
There are those lower realms, yes. I cannot say they don't exist. But you go across with your thoughts, you see, and some people experience the not so good thoughts. So for instance, I would say that perhaps someone who has done terrible things, or they may take those dark thoughts across with them and they may pick up the lower realms, you see. Or someone who has perhaps taken their life and they have gone across in a terrible state, may be experiencing the lower realms. And as soon as they call out to the light, if they are meant to go home at that point in their lives, then they will be taken into the light because they are loved. So your thoughts are where you are, you see.
Some people believe that there are negative or evil entities on the other side wanting to do us harm. Is that true?
Well, they usually hang about in the, I would say the lower realms, but I would also say that sometimes they are hanging around closer to your earth or in the astral. You see, it is possible that they have taken a lot of anger across with them, and I would say they have a lot to learn. But sometimes they, if you were to have a soul that would be particularly close to the earth and had a property, you see, and they were very, very angry about these living people coming into their property because they didn't see themselves as, they see them as invaders because they do not realize that they have passed. And they think that these people can see them and that they think that they are still living, you see. They have not accepted that they have passed. And so these people walk into their property and start messing about and putting all of their equipment there, or they move into the home. They see them as invaders, like you would see them. You wouldn't open your door and invite someone in and say, well, sit down to dinner. You are a total stranger. You may burgle my home. You may do anything, but I will still have you sitting in my home. Come to dinner. So you see, they see you as a perpetrator. They see you as a person that you shouldn't be in here. So I will turn very nasty and I will throw sorts of things at you to get you out of my abode. But they don't realize that they have passed. They may have been a very angry person in life, so therefore they will retaliate. But really, they're just needing help to go into the light. And some of them don't want to. But it is their decision because they had chosen it. Their souls had chosen to experience that, but they had forgotten what their soul had chosen, and they chose to stay there and have that experience.
When you're not with Elaine, what are you doing on the other side?
Well, because you are constantly in the moment, your thoughts are where you wish to be. So I will quite often be particularly waiting for when she will next join me, or I will take myself off for a ride on my horse Beauty across the Sunset Beach, or I will go and listen to the angels singing, or I will take my thoughts to a beautiful meadow or a garden, or I may want to speak to the higher realms and have some advice on how I would want to present what I wanted to say to people.
What kind of advice can you give all of us to lead better lives?
Love yourself and don't feel selfish in doing it. To trust in the universe and your journey in front of you. To know that you will always learn something from your journey. And to love each other and try to forgive one another, although we understand that certain things are past forgiveness, but try to cherish each other because this life is only so very fleeting. So start with yourselves. Love you so that you may shine that love out to others. And they will say, goodness me, they are looking very happy and radiant. What are they taking then? So therefore, you are letting them know, I'm loving myself from within so that I can shine it out to others. It doesn't make behavior perfect, but it gives you a more joyful outlook on life, doesn't it?
Yes. Would you say then that humanity's biggest problem is not loving itself?
That's right. Yes. But you've all chosen it, you see, you've all chosen to experience it, and because the awakening is happening, you've got the two sides, haven't you? You say it's good against evil, of course, but it is a battle of wills, isn't it, really? And if they all would start with themselves, perhaps the world would be more at peace.
Are there beings from other planets visiting the Earth, which we call aliens or extraterrestrials here?
Well, I will say to you that you are definitely not the only ones in the universe. The universe is so vast and encompassing and infinite that there are many, many planets that you will probably never discover, but are there. And these beings may be absolutely advanced and able to take their travel into other realms and other parts of the universe at the speed of light. Whereas your people are still trying to discover that. They're still trying to learn it. And they have advanced somewhat, but nowhere near in the capacity of other planets and other beings on those planets. So therefore, you're not the only ones in the universe. There are other planets that contain water that would be livable, yes. I suppose it would be. But the universe has a sort of mirror, doesn't it? And if you were to pass through the galaxy into the next, goodness knows what you would find.
When these beings and other universes and other planets leave their bodies, do they go to the same realm as we do? Like we all go to the same astral world?
You do, yes. You all go to the heavens. That's right.
And I guess once we're without a body there, we all look like just orbs of light?
Well, we can present ourselves to each other as a being, should we wish to, because we are all connected with consciousness, and we don't have a conversation with moving mouths and a visual and a sounding voice. We connect through consciousness because that is what we are without the physicality. So it is telepathic connection.
When we experience extreme traumatic events, why is it sometimes that it's just overwhelming? Like the expression, when it rains, it pours.
Well, I would say that sometimes things do seem rather overwhelming, but you always manage to come through them, don't you? And you come out of the other side and you have been brave and you have looked back and said, well, look where I was then. I was absolutely overwhelmed with it because it may seem fearful or it may seem too much for you to bear or to cope with. But you always manage to get through it somehow. I would say about 95% of you do, yes.
Are you aware of the term walk in soul? And if so, is that something that really happens?
It is a very, very rare thing. Very rare indeed, because if you imagine that you took over someone's body and you had to start halfway through their life, how awkward that would be, because I would say the personality would almost completely alter, wouldn't it? Because you've got a different soul dwelling within that being.
Right.
And they would have to have a pact that they made for that person, that soul rather, to come into the body and live the rest of that life experience and carry on the way that that being had carried on. So it's sort of leading a double life, so to speak, isn't it? But it is a very, very rare occasion. It's not something that is done frequently, no.
I believe last time you told me that you are Elaine's spirit guide. Am I correct about that? How do we connect with our own spirit guides?
Well, as I always state, you could ask them to send you signs, which we are very good at, but I wouldn't advise you to go looking for them, because if you want us to send them to you, just carry on with your life and we will all of a sudden send you a sign and you will perhaps hear something or glance across and see it or hear it.
But then
that is one way to connect with them. Another way is to perhaps sit in a meditation group or on your own meditating and ask them to connect with you. Send you a sign again.
Many people who are going through terrible things will pray, and it appears that their prayers aren't answered. Why is that?
Well, because you were given free will, and if you were choosing to go through that particular patch in your life where it wasn't for us to intervene at that point in time, then it's not that they're not answered or not heard. It's because we cannot simply interfere with your soul's choices, because then that would take away your free will. The human cannot see past that because they only see things as face value, you see, and they say, well, I'm suffering, I need help, and that's that. They forget because they have amnesia. And of course, the reason that you have amnesia when you come here is because if you knew everything that was going to happen to you in your life, life would not be an adventure, would it? It
That's
would
true.
be, every day you would know what was going to happen. It wouldn't be exciting for you. And it would also be fearful if there were times when you had a huge test to deal with. If you knew that that was coming, sometimes people, yes, they do have premonitions about certain things. But if you knew about that every day of your life, life would be tedious. Life would be fearful.
Would you say that life is supposed to be more pleasurable?
Well, they always say, don't they, life is what you make it. But they forget that the soul planned it. So therefore you have these mixtures of negative and positive emotions because you wish to experience the both in each and every lifetime. And so you want your life to be like a fairy tale. It isn't heaven, but it isn't here because this is the ego world and the corrupt world and all of that sort of thing.
Would you say that where you're at is the fairy tale?
Oh, yes. It's absolutely magnificent. There are no words to describe it. It's absolutely and monumentally a fairy tale.
Should people not fear death?
There's no need to fear death. Death is not a thing. Death is just what the humans see it as, because some of them say, well, that's it, that's the end, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. They couldn't be more wrong, because your soul is immortal. It's impossible to kill a soul. It's impossible for a soul to die. And one might say, well, wouldn't that be torture, living forever in the, in such a beautiful existence? One would never call that torture. I would call it bliss. And so therefore, let the ego go and do not fear. I do see that they fear how they're going to pass, not the passing. They never talk about the after bit, very rarely. They talk about how they're going to pass, in a sense, because they worry how they're going to go. But once they leave their body, that is it. The fear has gone, because it's only an ego emotion. It's not a spiritual emotion.
Are you aware of the Akashic records? And if so, are they real?
Well, you name them as the Akashic records, but they are every life, every deed, every experience, every emotion that you ever have been through and achieved in each and every lifetime. So you can look back at it like a book if you chose to, or like a movie if you chose to. That's how it is.
Is there a library of these records?
Yes. It's not like a book or a library. You could visualize it that way should you wish to. But it's like a sort of holographic library, so to speak. That's how it is.
Are you aware of the near-death experience that people have here in our realm?
Yes, we often have souls come to us briefly, and they have chosen to come back to us at that point in life because there was something they wanted to learn from the experience so that then they could take it back to the earth, speak about it to many others, and take away their fear of passing. So they've spread the word through their experience. That is how they chose to do it.
It appears that it's happening more and more often. Do you think that we need that message down here?
Yes, you certainly do, because it would take your fear away from most of you. But there are those that don't want to believe it, and we are not forceful upon them. But, for most, it would take their fear away.
And do you feel that humanity is being guided, and if not, it needs to be?
It is being guided, yes. Life may seem like a confusing maze of emotions and situations, but you are always guided and watched over.
Earlier you mentioned Yeshua. Will he return to our realm?
He will not return to your realm, but he will come into your hearts. You see, as I say, the church is inside of you. Your soul is your church. And of course, he is part of that. Always has been, always will be. You can always go to him. Or anything that you need to talk about, he is there.
Yes.
You may think that you're not being listened to, but you are.
Do you ever miss being in this realm?
No. I had some good times in that realm, yes, I must say. They were enjoyable and momentous moments. But I prefer to stay in the spirit realm.
Some people say that past, present, and future lives are all happening at the same time. Is that true?
Well, you have a mirror. Your planet has a sort of, if you look in a mirror, you will see another you, won't you?
Mm-hmm.
You see you looking back at you. Well, if you put the planet in a mirror, then there's another planet facing it. So therefore, there could be this other life that is living the mirror effect. Anything is possible. The strangest of things that you could possibly imagine are real.
Are you saying that there are other versions of us? That we are
yes.
multidimensional?
Yes, you're multidimensional, multifaceted. You are like a diamond. You are made up of so many facets. So a part of you remains in the spirit realm. The rest of you comes here, but there are parts of facets of you that could be in other places. It's absolutely amazing.
Do you remember the last time you were here? And can you tell us what life was like in the 1800s?
I would say that life wasn't always easy in the 1800s, but that was all we knew, you see. I grew up in a Christian valued family, and my mother was a beautiful woman, and my father, well, I didn't always see eye to eye with him. I loved him, yes, but we had quite a lot of differences of opinion. And in those days, they would put the families as lower class, middle class, and upper class, and sometimes people still do. And there were people that I would see as I walked past that were struggling, and they would ask for money, and I would sort of throw them a little bit of change to help them along. Yes, I believed in trying my best to help. But there were diseases and things because of poor sanitation with poor families. And many things that you have today, of course, that we wouldn't have done then, but we never knew anything about them. So new inventions were, seen by our, existence, people out time, but things evolve and change over many, many years and centuries. But it wasn't always a particularly easy life for some. And travel then was by horse and cart or horse and carriage, whatever you were able to have, depending on the riches that you had in your life or you didn't have. So, of course, there were pleasant times and there were difficult times too, yes. In those days, they had the workhouses, and sometimes they had young people working and slaving in those workhouses for many years of their lives. So it could be a cruel time, but it also had wonderful times within it too. And of course, in those days, we had Jack the Ripper, didn't we? Yes. So, things that weren't so pleasant did go on in those times too.
Do you have any information about Jack?
Well, I would say that he has reincarnated many times since then. But the part of him that remains in the spirit realm would have been very regretful of what he had done in life, but of course chose to experience those greater depths of emotion. And I do believe that he would have been very sorrowful about that. And looking back at his life and his experiences was that he had parents that were causing him a lot of problems. And that made him grow very resentful of ladies. He had problems with his mother, and he began to realize that, ladies of the night, we used to call them, and those ladies of the night, he began to resent them and hate them. So therefore, he carried out murder upon them. But when he came to heaven, he would realize that, well, maybe I need to go back and learn a few things. Maybe I needed to have understood their situation and why they did it. So maybe he would have come back and had similarities of position to understood what it would have felt like.
Many of my near-death experience guests say that after their life review, they've realized that the most important thing here is to be kind.
That's right. But, sometimes if people are not so nice to you, you tend to sort of put your shield up and say, well, I'm going to retaliate. I am not going to put up with that nonsense. I'm going to retaliate, and I'm going to be just as angry as they are, and I'm going to say my piece. Well, that is understood by us. And of course, that is what you call being resentful, because you've had somebody say something nasty against you. But the best thing to do is not to hold on to it and understand that you are beautiful and that you are loved and that you are valued. Even if the other human being does not value you, the emotion is coming from themselves, not from you. So don't allow it to attach itself to you. Let it go past you. Don't let it go through you and be absorbed by you, because you know that it isn't true. You know that you're totally loved and that you are worthy of love.
Jonathan, I don't have any more questions for you today, but I hope that we will meet again.
Yes, it would be absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure we will in time. But I know that you have many others to speak to, and you will be listening to some wonderful experiences in the future. But we send you our love and blessings, and we thank you for speaking with us. God bless you.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Right.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Were you present for any of that?
Well, I do hear bits go missing, Sometimes people mention things to me that have been said, and I think, oh, I didn't know that.
Well, Elaine, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yeah, I'm open to anything, mate. Yeah.
What's the best way to contact you?
Well, we have a website, ElaineThorpe.com, and I have my art, some of my art on there. I have Facebook, which is under Elaine Thorpe. We also have a page of Elaine Thorpe Trance Medium Spiritual Artist, which we put some of our live events on. The website, we have like Zoom meetings a few times a month, so where everyone can join and they can put their question across to Jonathan, and he'll help them in the best way that he can. And they all join, all of them on the screen, like we are now. And also you can sometimes book readings through the website, ElaineThorpe.com. And we also have our YouTube channel, which is Elaine Thorpe, THORPE. And sometimes people join our, Patreon, isn't it? So they can subscribe to our Patreon on there, and they get exclusive videos on there about the live shows we do around United Kingdom. Who knows, maybe one day we'll travel further, but it's always interesting that they get to experience that, so outside of the home, and we go all over the place to do these shows, so they get to watch that. I think we did put one of them on the actual YouTube channel. But there you go. Those are the ways that you can get through to me. Through Facebook, there's Instagram. I'm not sure what my Instagram is, but if you email Lucy on the ElaineThorpe.com website, she knows more about it, because they do all the technological side for me, and I just go in and do my bit. But, all the events will be on the website and on our Elaine Thorpe Trance Medium Spiritual Artist page on Facebook. Lucy puts the events on there if you wanted to ever show up to one of the events, which are live,
Do you have any live events that are coming up soon that you want people to know about?
Yes, we have one in, I'll just have a look actually while I'm here, because I think I kept a poster of it. Sure, I sort of screenshotted yeah. So the next one we have is like Broadgate National Spiritualist Church in Eagle Street in Coventry in the United Kingdom. So there should be the posters of that on my Elaine Thorpe trance medium spiritual artist page on Facebook. But Lucy will put it on the website, which again, I'll just remind you, is ElaineThorpe.com. She puts the events on the website, on the events page, okay? So that will probably be the best way for most of them to have a find of what is coming up on there, because we'll be updating those anyway.
Elaine, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
I would say never where your abilities are concerned. Trust in your abilities, trust in your intuitiveness, and definitely trust in the universe. I mean, that is just magical. I've used it a few times and it's worked. Believe me, it does work. And trust that, not to be afraid to communicate with your loved ones and your guides. Don't feel a fool in doing so. So trust in yourself, them, the universe and the heavens. That's what Jonathan always says. And I really do, because they know our path more than we do.
Elaine, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest again.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Jeff. It's been lovely, honestly. It really has. And I hope your channel continues to be successful. I really do.
And I wish you massive success in whatever you're doing.
Thank you. I just do what I do. I always think to myself, I'm meant to reach who I'm meant to reach. And that's all that matters to me. If it can help a person or help them go on their own spiritual journey, that's what's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, and have a lovely rest of your evening over there.
And you the rest of your day.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.